I'm partially deaf. I wear two bone-anchored hearing aids, and I've been deaf since birth. I was also born with a cleft palate as well. I grew up with subtitles on the TV. I was happy to be proved wrong. Like it really does work. I don't want to say I was the first, but PR, not ER. We're not saving the world.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of But Is It Legal, the podcast from TBD Marketing. I am and always have been Simon Marshall. I'm the host and founder of TBD Marketing. Today, I am joined by the brilliant Emily Hier, who is the social media marketing manager at Clyde & Co. Emily, welcome.
Thank you very much, Simon. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, what I get a real pleasure for all of us. I mean, to have an expert like you at our disposal for 25 minutes can be brilliant. Can you tell us a bit about like what you do for the day job? What's the day job at Clyde & Co?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as I said, I'm a social media manager at Clyde & Co. I've been at the firm since last June, so still a few months in. But my brief essentially is to look after our global social media strategy, our portfolio of social media accounts, obviously focusing on LinkedIn, and also launching our advocacy program as well, making sure that our lawyers are empowered and excited about LinkedIn and have the tools in place to help support with that. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to talk about that a bit more in a minute on the advocacy
Sure.
side as well. Then I know it's a hugely divisive thing in our area as well. So that's good to hear. Can you tell me a bit, because you've now worked for two of the like world's largest, most kind of famous law firms in that social media role. How did you get into working in digital for those two major law firms?
Oh, kind of like anyone, I sort of fell into it. But at university, I trained in old school journalism. I want to say NCTJ journalism, they called it, and I learned shorthand, media law, politics, magazine journalism. I loved it, but then I kind of figured out 2 years in that it wasn't in my bones to be a journalist. I didn't quite have that tenacity that you need to follow up a story. And also didn't really help that we had journalists coming to visit us and saying, don't do this, it's not working. That didn't really help. And that really impacted me. What I did figure out though was how much I enjoyed being given a story and making it look pretty and making it look impactful on the front page. So I took that little nugget. And when I graduated, I did 1,000,001 internships and then eventually found a marketing role with a tiny tech startup that no longer exists, called Sparkle, without an E at the end. And there I learned how to code a website and tell a simple story about a very complex bit of tech, which I cannot remember, and present to board members, which was also a very important thing to learn that early on. That's certainly helped me in my career today. Again, I loved it, but I was a team of one, and I wanted to join a sort of bigger company and learn, what was it like to be part of a corporate world. And I heard about a website role at Quicker Chance and applied, and the rest is sort of history. But I do remember in that job spec, though, there was a long list of very complex website requirements, learning how to code and all that kind of thing, and process and logistics. And at the very end, there was a thing that just said LinkedIn ? The firm just wasn't quite sure if it needed someone at that point. They had a LinkedIn page, but no one was really looking after it, and it just sort of seems nice to have. And I think that wasn't just Quicker Chance; that was every firm, I think, at the time. So I took that opportunity and kind of made social media my own over those 7 years. And learn how to work with lawyers, learn how a partnership works. I did not have a clue how law firms worked when I joined. Trying to grow my commercial awareness, and had a great old time. And then last year, I realised I'd done what I wanted to do, which was grow it into a really fabulous account with a lot of amazing content and a lot of stakeholders who were building in content, with my support. And I thought it was time for a new challenge. So I found a role at Clyde & Co. as social media manager, which was really exciting. And I've been there since last year. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but I feel like I've hit my niche.
I love it. What have you? I've written down here like what's the evolution of Digi over the last 5 years, but I think that's probably too long, right? What's the evolution of Digi been like over the last couple of years within professional services firms?
It's changed. This is the fun thing about digital and social media. It changes so much, and it continues to change rapidly. So one of the fun things about it is that you just never know really what you'll be doing on any sort of given day until you wake up. B2C is obviously light years ahead, and it's always a challenge to keep up. And I feel like we're forever like 5 years behind as an industry. But I feel like law firms now really understand just how important it is to have a good website presence and a good social media presence. You've got, for example, wannabe lawyers, Googling you and looking at your LinkedIn or your Instagram account before they even look at your website page as well. So the two things should go hand in hand. And I wouldn't be surprised as well if LinkedIn becomes, well, it's obviously a key channel for us with B2B and in law, but I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a more of a key channel for B2C this year as well, given just how much change is happening with the other platforms. We saw the TikTok ban recently. We saw just how much X/Twitter is changing as well. And it feels like a lot of people are coming over to LinkedIn because it feels like the only credible platform left, if you will. So I think
I
it'll
think
be,
we're seeing that evolution in the advertiser base. I get more adverts now for Jaguar cars, for,
yes.
kind of private wealth initiatives and things like that as well.
Mhm.
I just wouldn't have had a while ago.
Right.
Even like office space stuff as well, but the
Mm.
right kind of thing targeted at me. I think you're right. I think it's either B2B2C or it's B2C stuff increasingly on there that's
Yeah.
driving advertising revenues for starters.
Even memes as well, seeing those, I think when they started feeding through those a couple of years ago, I never thought I'd see that kind of tone of voice work on LinkedIn. And
Mm.
I was happy to be proved wrong. Like it really does work. It's very, very relatable and fun, and yeah, it's really interesting just to see how much it's evolved as a platform. And I know people call it like Facebook for professionals, but it somehow works.
I think it's a bit like, in the office, there are some people who go to the kitchen and some people who don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like that. You can go to LinkedIn and it
Yeah.
could be a bit like Facebook. And if you're the kind of person who goes to the kitchen, shares a
Mm.
joke with a friend, comes back, then there's that. Or
Yeah.
you keep it strictly like the kind of person who grabs their coffee from Starbucks on the way and
Exactly.
doesn't leave their desk all day, gets their head down, does their job. There's nothing wrong with either of those versions
Yeah.
of LinkedIn or work in life, right? But
Yeah.
I think one decrying the other is the danger, really. Like this isn't Facebook, it's a real like, you don't need to do that, right?
No, that's what I tell my partners. I think partners tend to panic thinking they have to be on there and they have to be doing that kind of, I want on the board, or showing off. It's like, well, no,
Formative stuff,
as
yeah.
long as you're present somehow, make it work for you. Don't, they feel very comfortable with the idea of being out there and having to promote themselves.
I don't know if it was your influence. I know that you had some other good colleagues as well in your former firm, but I definitely noticed that you use those company page accounts. Law firms would know them as firm accounts, right? But in a way, I felt was more personal than
Hmm.
lots of other firms were. So Clifford Chance was the first firm I saw where it regularly would comment on people's posts and say, "Well done, congratulations," or things like that as well. And it behaved like a human being. Is that? I mean, did you see others doing it too? I don't think I've come across it very much.
I don't want to say I was the first, but
But but we are where we are, right? So,
I definitely see more of it now happening than
yeah.
I used to, for sure. I think people are understanding that it's okay to, engage with, especially employees who are very excited about working for your company. They're saying, "I've been promoted. I've just joined Clyde and Co. I'm really excited." I think for me, it's a nice, easy win to say congratulations or welcome to the firm on those posts. And I think it shows, it helps with your brand reputation. It shows that you're invested in the community that you're marketing in as well. For example, when you're writing captions, making sure you're writing in the first person rather than saying so and so has advised on this. Just simply put it in the first person. Just feel, I mean, it feels just a bit more personal.
Relatable,
Yeah.
relatable. I agree. Just thinking about, so I know you've worked with those two massive firms and doing that, and
Yeah.
you kindly sat on a panel with Libby a while ago, who did
Hmm.
that incredible series of
Yes.
TikToks over at
It
Atwell's as
does.
well. Do you ever get a bit of professional jealousy about the idea of working on a smaller firm account, just thinking you take some bigger risks?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's so much more these smaller firms are able to do that. I think bigger firms, naturally, we're a law firm, we're going to be risk averse. It's in our nature, to get very nervous about doing, changing the tone of voice. And there's little things that I've done, the tone of voice, where I can tweak it. But going as far as what Libby did, I'm forever jealous of that because it's just not something that I could ever picture myself being able to pitch. But you never know. You never know how things might change.
I saw it with Lanyon Bowdler back in the kind of times of lockdown, and they've got a little trophy teddy bear that's got their brand on it as well. And this
Mm.
teddy bear basically travelled around the coast of Wales,
Oh,
right? And they'd like take all these amazing coastal shots. And I
mm,
think it was just one of those really subtle ways of letting them know this
mm,
is the area we care about, this is who we serve, this is what we do.
mm.
But it was done in a way that was kind of accessible and fun as well. And it's something that great respect you wouldn't be doing at a massive firm necessarily, right? It's just
No, not necessarily. But I think there are. I think people are starting to understand how important those human interest stories are now, and how important that is to bring forward into your campaigns, especially when you're promoting expertise. You want to meet the people behind the firm who are delivering that kind of client excellence. Yes, they're an expert lawyer, they know the stuff, but what are they actually like as a person? That is more likely to be what clients might connect to, as opposed to an independent website profile. Like, for example, I've been working on this campaign where we get some of our lawyers, partners, trainees, business professionals actually as well, just writing a short thing for our LinkedIn where, we hear from them, I'm so and so, I specialize in this, but I also care about this. I got into this job because my parents got divorced as a kid, and that kind of really influenced me. And we launched that a couple of weeks ago, which got a really nice reaction actually from people. So it's a little
I'd like to feature it. I'll go and take a look at it, Emily, as well, because I think
bit.
it's that kind of stuff. I think your work with the grad rec team back at CC as well did that. Didn't you do those amazing videos where there were those letters that had been written to the lawyers and they read them? And
Yes.
that was I literally sat in,
Mm,
it's no word of a lie. I ended up crying watching that video. It was incredible
mm.
watching this really humanized version. I'll dig out a link to that, Emily, because I think it was really worth
It was
heralding
brilliant.
for other firms as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely the
Um,
brainchild of the graduate recruitment team, but it was really fun to help bring it to life on social. It was such a powerful thing to work on. I think there was this acknowledgement that was needed, especially for lawyers who are coming into the firm, training lawyers come to the firm, imagining that they're going to work on these massive high profile transactions. And yes, that is a part of working in these firms, but it's also things like just reviewing term sheets, and sometimes it's not the most exciting job in the world. So that's what the team set out to do, was acknowledging that yes, it's going to be a lot of hard, it's a lot of fun, but it's also going to be a lot of hard work to get there, and you need to be committed to that. And that was the aim of what the team tried to do, and they did it in a really sort of really nice and personal way.
It was incredible. I don't think there are so many untold stories in major firms, right?
Yeah.
What you've just said with your campaign you're running now as well, all those Clive and Co stories that would have otherwise been untold by
Yeah.
those individuals are going to get aired, and I love that. We've
Mhm.
got to find the right balance of personal and professional, but I think
Mhm.
you're for anyone listening who doesn't yet follow Emily, please do, because I think she's a great person at showing us how to kind of pursue on that. Listen, the question for you, I
Mm.
think you alluded to it a minute ago. Do you see yourself more as a data geek or a storyteller?
Oh, definitely storyteller. Yeah,
Yeah.
two pillars and roots. I have, obviously reporting and numbers are part of my job. Paid ad campaigns also part of my job. It's not something that comes naturally to me. I'm essentially, I'm not afraid to say, I'm basically numbers blind. So any support I can get, we have a really fantastic analyst here at Cloud & Co who helps me put together a lot of reporting and looking at Power BI integrations and all that kind of good stuff. And I depend on him a lot to sort of help translate that into a narrative for me. Whenever we do work on those reports, we want to make sure that there's something digestible for our lawyers to take away, that they can go away and think, well, these are sort of the headlines from the campaign that I worked on. But yeah, I definitely prefer telling a story and, as I said, sort of making it make sense for the audience that we're trying to target, as opposed to just writing up a generic thing based on an insight. What value are we trying to bring? What story are we trying to tell? That's something that I always think about in our comms.
I love that. What's the thing that really kind of hooks partners in that they kind of get it? Do they, what's the stat or the story that you tell them that they go, right, I'm doing it now. That is it.
Mm. It's always going to be things like, your thing was the best performing thing of last quarter. They want to know that's the
Or it
best,
wasn't.
the best. So I have to work really hard to find this story sometimes if the campaign doesn't work as well as we wanted it to. But yeah, I always try and look at our data in context and trying to figure out, okay, where is this sat? amongst everything else. Did it get the most clicks? Did it get the most views? Did it get the most whatever? And that's a story that I want to tell them. And it hasn't done that well, then I'll try and be transparent and say, well, it didn't perform that well, but here are sort of 3 things that we can consider next time for your event or your insight. This is what we can do to improve next time. You know, if we are built into the planning earlier on, you know, we can help you, you know, build a video or, you know, create a GIF or, you know, whatever. If we have more time to plan, we can help you do X, Y, Z. And that's what usually gets them to work with us next time.
Yeah, I love it. There's always something that you can share with people as well. I
Yeah.
think when we started out doing this podcast, we had no idea like how it was going to go. We thought there'd be like 12
Mm.
people that might like dial in every now and then, and
Yeah.
hopefully that. And then I recently caught up with William Peake, and his episode had over 100 hours of view time on it as
Oh,
well. And it's like, well, you know, it's worth doing. Like
yeah.
when you're profiling your brand that way and you're able to share your story. I mean, this one
Mm.
will go far and wide given the nature of what you do as well. But sometimes I think you've got to take a risk as well. What
Yeah.
any advice for those digital marketers along those lines who are just thinking about getting into professional services? Why should they come and work
Mm.
here rather than working at Wendy's or McDonald's?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it takes a certain type of personality,
Oh yeah.
and a certain type of person to be able to succeed in a law firm. You've got to be ready for chaos, but you also got to be ready to have fun. Yes, you know, from the outside, the work might not seem that interesting, but when you come into the firm and you realize there's so many facets to the firm. I was really surprised when I came into the firm, well, took a chance actually when I came in, because I thought, oh, law firm, okay, there's going to be, you know, lots of deals, X, Y, Z. And I realized, oh, there's a diversity inclusion team, there's a bono team, they're doing lots of interesting work as well. And that made me get 10 times more excited about it, because I realized, oh, it's not just a law firm, it's also all of this as well. So yes, it can be chaotic and sometimes a little bit frustrating, but you can have a lot of fun doing it at the same time.
There was a golden era there, I suppose, where you had your
Mm.
own who was, you know, completely deeply committed to ESG, and you had Nina,
Mm.
who is an ex-journalist herself, at the head
Yeah.
of the DEI kind of role as well at CC. And I
Mm.
think that, you know, having a journalist in your role, a journalist in her role,
Mm.
ex-journalist in her role, is really helpful because they're just natural storytellers. And then, and as I say,
Exactly.
your own who's deeply committed to kind of pushing the right agenda on ESG. Tell
Mm.
me a bit, diving into that a bit. I know that advocacy for greater inclusion around kind of disability
Mm.
is important to you as well. Can you tell me a bit about that? What's,
Mm.
where's that coming from,
Mm.
and what do you do, and what do we need to know that we don't know?
Yeah, sure. So selfishly, my advocacy kind of comes from personal experience. I'm partially deaf. I wear 2 bone-anchored hearing aids, which are sort of like cochlear implants. And I've been deaf since birth. I was also born with a cleft palate as well. So I grew up with subtitles on the TV all the time. It was part of my life. And I came into corporate and I was like, where are the subtitles? I can't watch town halls. I can't do, you know, I can't watch this. It's very hard for me to do this. And then I got told at the time that having subtitles was kind of like having a vegan at the dinner table. It's like it's expensive, it's hard, we don't want to do it basically. And that kind of lit a fire under me and to change that perception of subtitles. They're not just beneficial for deaf people like myself, they're beneficial, you know, for digital marketing itself, you know, SEO, having a transcription, people who are learning English or a foreign language, people who might be dyslexic, they're beneficial in a lot of ways. So I went with a campaign to sort of to change that and bring them into marketing, especially, and making sure they are present on all our videos on social. Um, and then that kind of led me into working with our D&I team and realizing that there were networks that I had no idea about. I did not realize that in corporates had things like these where you could sort of help influence or change the lived experience of employees, and that was really empowering to me once I realized that was a thing. So I joined Enable, which was our disability network, and chaired that for a year, and that was stressful but really, really fun. Did a lot of fun stuff with them, and now I'm part of the Enable network here at Clive & Co as well. I've only just joined, so it's still early days. We just spent a few months, we just spent a day kind of figuring out what our plan looks like for the rest of the year. So that's really exciting. But yeah, so it all kind of came being deaf. But I think that's often what happens. It's something that's personal to a lot of people, and that's how they get involved. And for me, it's really important to make sure that you have those people on board, but also you have senior allies as well who can help push through the agenda that you're trying to.
Yeah, it benefits everyone as well, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
live in a second screen kind of world nowadays. People are watching EastEnders at the same time as looking at their phones.
Mm.
And, I'm not going to play a video volume out loud while I'm doing it. I'm not going to play it on the tube.
No.
I'm not going to play it on the train. I'm not a beast, right? So I'm going to read it and read the subtitles. I would say we watch the telly at home here with subtitles on 95% of the time. We have subtitles
Mm.
on. No one has any hard of hearing issues in the house at all. But it's just one of those accessibility points. And one of our kids prefers to know that they can back up what they're hearing or what they're reading. And
That's
it's
great.
been transformative for us as a household, really, to take
Yeah.
it in that way as well. What do you wish? What are some other modifications that law firms or employers could make just to make it a bit more inclusive around that subject matter in particular? One of the things that we did, I think, was when you were coming to speak on the panel, we asked you about it as well.
What did I say?
Well, it was really, you said about subtitles, right? It was one of the things you said.
Yeah.
Will there be any form of subtitling? I thought it was really
Yeah.
interesting. But I actually now, when I go onto calls and there's more than a couple of people and I don't know the people, I ask the question
Mhm.
every time. I ask the question
That's
every
great.
time. I say, is there any adjustments I need to make in relation to what we're doing today on this call? It's actually
That's
changed
a good
my
one.
behavior because of you
Oh.
engaging with me that way. It's really important to me that we got
Yeah.
that right. So, yeah.
Having things like live captions as well, sort of at events especially. I've seen that. It doesn't happen enough, but yeah. Having things like live captions can really help the experience as well. And we make sure at the events that we had for Enable that they were present and they were there. And that made a huge difference to people who were attending as well. And again, they were not hard of hearing, they just found them beneficial to have around.
Yeah, I think it just needs to be part of our lived experience nowadays as well. And
Mm.
it sounds really strange to say, but I wouldn't go to the opera and not look at the subtitles. I just look at them all the time. I prefer to know what's going on. I don't speak
Yeah. You need
Italian
that
fluently.
context. You need
So,
that
so
context.
exactly. And your
Mm.
enjoyment of the thing is enriched by having that opportunity to do that as
Yeah.
well. I think we also read at a pace that gets us ahead of what the action is kind of
Mm.
going on there as well. And that's good for you to go, okay, I can understand. And now I can enjoy the visual element of it as
Yeah.
well. So I just wanted you to know though that your voice makes a difference there because I clearly have changed my behaviours around it as well. So that's good to know. Um, are we allowed to know about any of those campaigns that you're working on at Clyde and Co? Or are they still bubbling around at the moment and still being worked on?
Just bubbling around, yeah.
I'm sure you'll tell us about them on social media in due
I
course.
will.
I love
I'm
as
already
well.
writing the LinkedIn post as we speak. But yeah, I'm always keen to see as well what's happening, in the wider kind of legal sector. I think, I speak as a professional, my experience has been it's been okay. I've been, my employers have been very supportive of me no matter what the situation is. I've always like Client Care really surprised me when I joined because I had an email from the HR partner my first day saying, do you need any help, any adjustments that we can provide, let us know. And I was like, whoa, I've sort of taken it back because I've not had a law firm be so forward with what adjustments, providing adjustments before. So that was a nice surprise. And there's people doing some really amazing work as well with the Disabled Solicitors Network with Rena Palmer and Chris Seal, who are trying to push, trying to raise awareness of what lawyers can do and what support they can have and what law firm support they should be doing as well. So yeah, there's a lot of positive things happening in the sector, but there's always more we can be doing, for sure.
I'd encourage all the lawyers who are watching to actually look at your work and Rena's work in that area as well, because I think that it's beneficial for them to think about their clients' needs in relation to that as well, their
Mhm.
intermediaries' needs, anyone who's going to be a future kind of employee there as well. So it's not just about home team stuff, it's actually about making sure that everyone feels included. I think the clients who feel included by their lawyers that way are going to be incredibly loyal to
Yeah.
you, to your organization as a result of it as well. Okay, let's play some games, asking some cheeky questions instead. If you had to explain digital marketing to an alien just landed on Earth, or maybe a 5-year-old child, how do you do it? Give me what you do in like 2 sentences.
Oh, I would say it's about, I don't know if this would work for an alien, but for me, it's about establishing an emotional connection on behalf of a brand or an influencer or a person in a digital way, whether that's through an email or through a LinkedIn post or a TikTok or whatever that digital aspect is. It's about establishing that emotional connection. But I don't know if that would make sense.
I love it. I love it. So connecting humans through digital, right? I mean, it's just
Exactly. Yeah, you put so much
brilliant,
than I
right?
can try.
No, no, no. I mean, that's just, it's really nice to know that's what you're doing. What's the most ridiculous piece of corporate jargon you've heard, and how do you rewrite it in plain English?
Oh, I've never liked the phrase low hanging fruit. I always had to Google it when someone says it in meetings. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I had to Google it last night to remind myself low hanging fruit. And for me, it's just about being able to easily do something, right? That's what it means. But they put it in such a confusing way. That's what it means, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that the low-hanging fruit is always the one you're supposed to be picking. I mean,
Yeah.
I have an issue with
Why
it
would you
slightly
pick the low hanging
differently.
fruit?
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I think the metaphor's okay, but the reality of it is like just because it's easy doesn't mean it's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
right? So I like that. That's good. If you could swap jobs with anyone for a day within marketing or somewhere else, who would it be, and why would you want to swap?
Oh, is this within a law firm or just any job in the world?
You choose. I'm relaxed. It can be within a law firm if you want.
Oh yeah, no, I don't want to. No, if I had the chance to, if I had the chance, it would be something completely different. I love movies. I'm always at the cinema. It's my favorite thing to do is going to watch a new film that's out. I always love the idea of being a film producer, and I think that's kind of similar to being a social media manager. There's a lot of logistics involved.
Oh, yeah.
You have a lot of stakeholders involved. So for me, it would be a film producer, and just being able to work on a film set for a day would be my absolute dream. Yeah.
If you could think back over the last 12 months, all the movies that you've seen, which
Mhm.
one do you wish you'd been a producer or an exec producer on? What would you have liked to have done?
Oh, I saw one recently called A Real Pain, which was
Oh, it
with
looks amazing. It looks amazing.
it's really emotional and funny, and that's a hard thing to get right in a movie. So yeah, that's my. I mean, it's what I saw most recently, so I am biased, but yeah, yeah, perfect film in my view.
My wife bought me an Everyman Anytime ticket for my birthday last year. And you know, those like things that you wouldn't otherwise go and see?
Yeah,
You do, because the ticket's already included. I mean, you've paid for
yeah,
it, right? And
exactly.
it's been a revelation because I've seen movies that I would never have seen. Some of them I've gone to see 2, 3 times, right? And it's
Mhm.
just been brilliant to go and do a bit. That's why it is coincidentally 200 meters from my office, so it's quite nice to be able
That's
to,
what you
you
got
know,
for it.
like go and do that for a bit
That's
as
a
well.
TikTok present. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna.
I mean, really, it's top level gifting, as can be said. Tell me a bit about um most valuable piece of advice you've received in your career.
Oh, it's a cliche, but uh, PR, not ER. We're not saving the world. Yeah, it's always something I have in the back of my mind when you get panicky emails or someone's trying to publish something ASAP, and they're saying it's really really urgent. You think it's not. It's actually not an emergency. It might be an emergency in your eyes, but it's actually it's really not. It's really not an emergency.
What do they say? Your lack of planning is not my emergency. It does not
Yeah.
constitute my emergency. Yeah, good. And then last one from me. What
Mhm.
do you hope to see change in the world of digital marketing and inclusion? What's the biggest change you'd like to see over the next 3 to 5 years?
I mean, yeah, again, it's a bit of a cliche, but building social media and digital marketing in from the start, it's not social media is not a megaphone for your brand. It's a strategic and important part of it. It's not everything. We saw with the recent changes to platforms like TikTok that we're merely renting these platforms. We don't own them. So you can't build everything into that strategy on social, but it still should be built in right from the start. And I feel like with social media at the moment, you have to be kind of an everyman for what we do. You're a content creator, you're a videographer, you're technical support, you're IT, you're an asset designer, that kind of thing. And I think that kind of sets up quite nicely for being heads of in the future. There's a lot that we see a lot of all kind of facets of the business through what we do. And yeah, I think that there's definitely some leadership qualities there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that in the future.
I think that's right. CMOs are going to come from that role.
Mhm.
I think they're very well informed on the storytelling and the data front as well. So if you've
Yes.
got all of those rounded skills, it's actually quite hard to compete with that if you've only come up through the BD side or the Marcom side, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Emily, it's always a pleasure chatting to you. We've been lucky enough to have you on the panel now and on the podcast as well. If anybody else wants to, please do. follow Emily. You won't regret it. Some great work coming from her, but go and look at what she does from the corporate feed as well. It's not the same as you're going to see from, a bog standard law firm as well. And I think that should inspire us to what we should be doing with our corporate accounts. If you like this edition, send it to a friend, right? The worst they're going to do is just not watch too much of it, but the best they're going to do is thank you and subscribe to it as well. Emily, if people want to be inspired and get in touch with you and talk about digital marketing careers, is that okay?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sending me a message on LinkedIn.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to catching up with you face to face very soon as well. So thank you for your time today.
You have me say.